Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. Sorry about the technical delays and whatnot. But anyway, I've been out of commission for a little bit because I was dealing with some construction issues in the back. I had some drywall I had to do in the back, which was kind of a nightmare. And I also was dealing with some health issues, which was kind of a nightmare with my back, and had to do physical therapy for a couple weeks and whatnot. But finally got back in the saddle, so I've been very, very thankful about that. Um, and I was looking at doing a different series, talked about my options, and after looking at a lot of different distilleries and whatnot, I thought I should focus on the independent bottlings and the high end versions of the distilleries. And it was a good idea. I don't have any buyer's remorse, but I thought, I'll go back and take a look at Scotch Malt Whisky Society, Gordon MacPhail's, and exclusive malts. And after I had some of these bottlings, I do enjoy them, but I still find myself looking back and looking for what I love and what I know. Some of the distilleries that I fell in love with from just the first couple sips, and it happens. Everyone's got their own. I'm gonna go through these distilleries one by one, pick what I like, what I don't like. I am to make it more of what's the word for it? Interactive, more encompassing, involving uh, for other guys like Brent Murphy and Loknes. Thanks so much for stopping by, guys. Is that I'm going to let them also average in what their input into what they think of the distillery, and even if it's not a boatload of people, that's okay. If you have a few people to give some input that feel like giving you some of their comments and what they believe, I'm all about trying to factor that into giving an average of because we know what we like, and we've a lot of us people have regulars on my show at least are have been around the block a few times and know what to look for. Linus asked me if I've had any trip planned to Scotland. I do have a trip planned at some point, but when that's going to happen, I do not know. I had mentioned that my wife definitely knows that I'm interested in going at some point. It's just a matter, I think, of blocking out the time and about a year in advance and just going for it. But it's going to take some sit down convincing, I think, but it'll happen eventually. It's just I'm thankfully not in an ultra hurry, but I would like to get my butt over there and have a little fun, especially at the Isla places where I know Isla itself has a couple really nice hotels where they have really uh, hard to find Ardbegs, Lafroigs, and whatnot to get into. And that's the first distillery. Matter of fact, we're going to take a look at on our new series. We're going to try as an experiment. If it doesn't work out, we gave it a good try. Some of these distilleries I'm going to have to wait on because they might not have a lot as far as to try yet. Some of these new ones like King's Barn is a good one. Ardmaturin is another new one that I've had recently. But even though I like their inaugural release, it's just an inaugural release, and that's all they have to really play with. So it wouldn't be fair to rate them overall as like a distillery. Like some of these guys have been around for a long time, uh, Ardmore or Auchentoshan or Ball Blair, etc. So thank you so much for the praises. I really appreciate it. Loch is going in 2022, man. That'd be awesome. 30th anniversary. Congratulations. I got a drink to that. I've been sipping on a little Dalmore tonight. I started out with the Dalmore 15, and Swami's right. There's this like weird, I don't know, off-putting candy-like characteristic to the nose a little bit of it. The palate to me is a little better, but I've been and this is a really good example of when you do need to pull out your independent bottling of a Dalmore. This is a peppery pears and praline 13 from SMWS. I've been sipping on that off and on tonight while we talk a little bit about Ardbeg is going to be the star of the show, I think, this evening, and I will have a little bit of that too. Sadly, the stuff I have left for Ardbeg is on the higher end, so I try not to slurp it all up too quickly. Hey, Jason Coe, it's good to see you, man. It's been a long time. I went over why I've been out for a while, so if you didn't catch the beginning, please rewind later on when you have a chance and listen to my sob story. But it's been a rough August. I'm glad August is about over. I'm happy Labor Day to all you guys. I really appreciate you being there, and hopefully you get a good bottle of yourself. Loknes is asking if she should open his Ardbeg Grooves tonight, as we are big Ardbeg fans. It's funny that you mentioned that, Loknes, because I have an unopened bottle of Ardbeg Grooves sitting back there. I went through my committee release really quickly. It was very, very, very good. I think you will be. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Um, I am not a huge fan of the new drum as much as I am their classic releases of their specialties, per year, their committee release and limited releases they do per year. The drum was um, it was still good. I rated it, I think I gave it like a 3.5 to 4 out of 5, somewhere around there. Probably 3.75 would be more of an accurate rating. Um, it just I wish it had a little bit more of the rum characteristics, a little thicker, a little more molasses, maybe a little more flavor profile in the rum area. But for me, but it was still a pleasant dram, and I don't want people to think the wrong thing. But the Grooves is a very, very, very nice glass. Yeah, this is just a standard too. I have an open back here, so I might crack mine open if you crack yours open. How about that? Trooper says he had a little glass of Ardbeg, and earlier this afternoon, and yes, it was. It's a nice one too. That one's an empty, unfortunately, back there. I've got on the wall, but it's a little sweet minty peat. I like it. It's light, refreshing, great summer dram offering that Ardbeg has to go along nicely with their 10, I think. And I know some people were not into the NO as much as I was, but to me, at least, it was better than the Lafroig Select. Just saying. And I don't mind some sweet peat, so I think that's the kick of it. If you aren't a big sweet peat fan, you're not going to like the NO maybe as much. But if you're down with the Oreos and the sweet mint cookie, peaty, bright, oh, just goody goodness, I don't see how you can go wrong. But let's get to that in a second. Now, speaking of looking at distilleries, I want to give you kind of an idea of what I'm looking at as far as the ratings and how I'm going to approach it. Um, Jason's in Kansas. Yeah, he's out there. Oh, Springbank 10 definitely does never disappoint. That's a good one. And Springbank is a distillery we'll look at. I'm not sure if it'll be the next one, but it's definitely going to be on the list. We're going to hit all of them eventually, I think. That's the goal, at least. So let's look at Ardbeg. Now, with these distilleries, I'm going to take a look at the first category is overall taste. And I'm going to give it like an A plus through an F type of rating based off a number. And the numbers I'm choosing are 10 through 0. A plus is a 10, A is a 9, A minus is an 8, B plus is 7, etc., etc. So I'm going to give it a number, and out of that number, I'm going to give it a letter average at the end. I'll talk about my personal numbers first, and then I'm going to let you guys give me what your numbers are going to be per the category, and we'll see where we sit. If someone's a lot different, or if everyone's kind of on the same page. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. What is your take on Ardbeg, basically? Overall taste is going to be the first number we're going to give it. Then we're going to look at consistency. Consistency meaning if they have a batch, like when they release their Ugadal or they release their 10, is it always the same? or is it not always the same? Sometimes you get into batches, for example, like Ardbeg doesn't really typically do uh, batches per se, like a cast strength Lafroig 10, but you know, I consider the Corey and the Ugadal, the Ano, the 10, every year the release, is it consistent? That's going to be the second number. Variety, how much variety do they give? Do they only have 2 or 3 offerings, or do they have, lots that you could get into? um, Age. Do they have a really good wide range of ages to get into? Do they just have a 10, or do they have a 15, 17, 18, 21, 25, et cetera, et cetera? The next score will be availability. How easily is it for me to go to any liquor store and pick up an Ardbeg, whatever, even their core? Can I get a 10 or an O or something? Um, and finally, we'll look at just overall value. What the price of a 10 or a Ugadal, for the price that you're spending, is the value there? Do you get what you're spending the money on? And finally, I'm not going to talk about this affecting the score, because I don't think packaging and marketing really affect um, a distillery. I mean, I guess it kind of does, but I didn't want to get too far into the weeds and all that. We'll talk a little bit about their packaging and marketing and what they do, and get what we're not going to rate it per se, like a number, but we'll just talk about what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, if it matters to you. I'm just kind of curious. Um, Daniel says, I won the t-shirt game tonight. My wife actually picked this one up, I think, for me, or was it actually my mom might have picked it out. My mom lives in Kentucky, and uh, she, like, all of a sudden was watching some of my videos and stuff, and she sent me some shirts. So I think she might have actually picked this one up for me, and got another one along with it and sent it as a package, a deal. So you have to ask, if you see your mother on, that's my mama actually. So you might have to ask her where she picked it up for me, probably online or something. I have a feeling. I think Sean might have, from the Scotch 4 Dummies. He might have the same shirt. I know he's got the same one I've got, where it says, I drink Scotch and I know things, something like that. I know he's got that one, but I'm not sure if he's got this one or not. But this is one of my favorites. It's just a classic. Thanks for the feedback. Trooper says, you make him run and get some Ardbeg grooves. It's really good. If you can still find it, it's definitely worth the money. If it's not over a couple $100, I think it's still worth a buy. It's outstanding. The 10 is 100 Canadian and always on my shelf. Well, we'll get to that in a second, Loknes, on the price. So let's start out. I'm going to start out with my number on taste, and then you guys, I want you to come in and give me what you think your overall rating, 10 being the best, 0 being the worst, of what all the core and the extra offerings you've experienced from Ardbeg, what are they to you? Now, and I'm going to be completely realistic. Even though Ardbeg is my favorite distillery, probably above all of them, close second, Lagavulin / Lafroig, but Ardbeg is probably my number one. So that'll tell you right off the bat, these are going to be some high numbers. But and Swami, good to see you, man. In your honor, I'm drinking a Dalmore, but it's not from Dalmore. It's from SMWS. It was funny. I was just telling these guys that I started out with the Dalmore 15 earlier today, and you're right. It's got this like cloyingly sweet, chalky thing on the nose. I just can't get over. The palate, thankfully, is a little bit better. But if I'm gonna go for a Dalmore, I'm gonna go for independent every damn time. It's just, unless I want to shell out the $300 for the King Alexander or the 18 or something crazy like that. But for the bang for the buck, I think you're better off with the independent when it comes to Bowmore. Is the same way. Bowmore, Dalmore, Maybe it's a more thing. Maybe anything that ends with more, you should buy the independent instead of the actual the damn distillery offering. But that's a whole nother story. But anyway, cast strength whiskey for the win. Okay, taste wise, guys, I want you to sit and think for a second. Ardbeg. Think of the 10, think of the Ano, think of the Korevrekken, and the Ugadal first. Now, 10 being great, 0 being horrible. What taking the core, what do you get usually? Is it a 7? Is it an 8? Is it a 2? Average it out. Then stop and think, okay, I love the Dark Cove. I'm into the grooves. The drum wasn't such a good, offering. Thanks for stopping by, Swami. It's good to see you, even though you haven't drank in a week. I was the same way. I had a big break, my friend, but hopefully you get to watch after the fact if you get a little time, and feel free to stop by anytime. Hopefully you'll enjoy the series I'm starting tonight. Anyway, think of the Dark, Cove, the grooves, the Perpetuum, if you've had the Era Verdes, if you've had some of the older ones, if you're classic and you've had the Erinon Bashed or the Lord of the Isles, the Galileo, the Supernova, add it all together. Think about what the Ardbeg taste overall, 10 to 0. What's your number? Give me the number in the chat and I will take it apart as part of the spreadsheet that I'm doing, and I'll factor it in and see where everyone's coming from and factor it in with my own number. Now, it's hard to give anything perfection. I don't think anything's technically perfect. Ardbeg being my favorite, though, is probably going to be the highest number taste-wise. I have to give it a 9. If I look at Lafroig, the Select is something that I don't really get into, so that really chipped it away from the bat. With Ardbeg, even though the 10 isn't in my palate, it's not a the lemon lime thing that I don't jive with, but it's still appreciated as a great whiskey, and I can still appreciate it for what it is. If I'm just sipping something, having a nice dinner on the side, a nice steak or something, I think I could see it going pretty well with that, even if I'm not down with the lemon lime flavor. So it's really hard to knock them for much. I mean, their core is solid. The only thing they don't really have is the ages, and we'll get to that later. That's just why I'm going to factor that in. But overall taste, from the 10 through the core, through all their extra offerings, I got to give them a 9. I'm going to give them a solid 9. I think that's well deserved. So give me your number, and don't give me for each offering. Give me like a solid flat. If you look at the 10, the Ugadal, the Corey, everything you've ever tried from Ardbeg, what is your number? What is your taste number average, for the distillery? And if it's not your favorite, that's okay. If it's a 2, I definitely don't have a problem factoring it in. I would be kind of surprised and probably think, well, you're probably not a big peat fan if you're that against it. Because as far as quality whiskey, it's definitely a quality whiskey and hard to really, find much wrong going on. I know some people with the Ano was kind of turned off by the sweet factor, maybe the lightness of it, but I think it's a solid 8, like Trooper was saying. So Loknes is saying an 8 for what he's tried, and I think that's very fair. And if it was a 1, I would still think it's fair. It's his subjective view on it. I'm going to put Loknes down for his 8. What do you guys think? Give me a number. What do you think as far as taste wise? This is all this is about, is taste. Let me see. I'm trying to plug these in a certain way so I don't mess anything up. I gotta label these so I don't mess these up later. Taste. Jason, what do you think? What's your number? Whiskey Ace, Donner. Give me some of your numbers on Ardbeg as far as across the board, what you overall taste wise factor. And if you don't have a number, that's okay. If you haven't had enough, if you've had at least three or four, though, I think that's enough to say, whether or not you taste wise are really into a distillery, or if you're kind of so, or if it's just not for you. I'm just curious what me and my viewers, what they're into. It's interesting to me. So give me a number, taste wise, Ardbeg, what you got? Um, I'll give it a couple more seconds, and if there's nobody that wants to plug a number in there, then I'll just go with Loknes's 8, and we'll move on to the next category. Whiskey Ace is heading to Kentucky this weekend. Nice. Daniel loves the Ugadal. Have you had anything else? I mean, how do you feel about the 10, the Ano, the Corey of Reckon, some of the other offerings? Give them like an average. 8.5. Okay, that's definitely fair. Daniel's down with the 8.5. This is going to be interesting. Jason doesn't drink much Ardbeg. The marketing really turns him off. The 10 is fantastic, though. Interesting. I am going to get into the marketing, Jason, so stay tuned for that. But as far as overall taste, other than the 10, have you had anything else? Have you had the Ano, the Quarry of Reckon, or the Ugadal, or any other like Grooves, Drum, Dark Cove, Kelpie, anything else? And if so, give me kind of like an average across the board, what you think, you know, of the distillery as a whole. Daniel says it doesn't even taste smoky to me anymore, though. Wow. If the 10 isn't smoky to you anymore, then you have been definitely hitting the peat a lot lately. Because, I mean, other than the Octomore, man, it's hard to find a peatier whiskey just out of the. Brooklady has a couple of. Other than Octomore, they had the Port Charlotte that's pretty damn peaty, but Jason doesn't think that Oogie's an improvement on the 10. I'm surprised, but it's okay. Craverick is killer. Never had the NO. Okay. Before 10 cast strength is one of the favorites now. Gotcha. Jason's never had the Quarry. The Quarry is very spicy, peppery. It's like white pepper, black pepper, a Talisker, and Ardbeg got together and had a kid. It's what the Quarry of Reckon, I think, is like a lot. Um, but I guess we'll go with that since we've had plenty of time to look, and I think they're pretty close. It looks like on the low end we have 8. Daniel with an 8.5, myself with a high 9, because I am a huge Ardbeg fanboy. I will admit it every day of the week. Consistency. Now, this is the next category. How consistent is the Ardbegs that you've had as far as your Ugadals and your 10s? Are they always good, or do you have some years or batches where you're kind of like, well, that bottle was really great. I had, 3 or 4 months ago, but this latest one I had wasn't so good. To me, thankfully, I have yet to be to open up a bad bottle of an Ardbeg. So I'm just going to leave it with that, and I'm going to give it another 9 for me on the consistency. It's hard to say that Ardbeg is not consistent on their anything that they have released. It's always been the same 10, the same Ugadal, pretty much. I mean, the older ones may be a little more slightly, potent with the flavor, but the make model, what you're, if you're driving it like a car, it feels the same, it tastes the same, it's great quality either way. Let me know what you guys think as far as consistency, Loknes and Daniel especially. Give me a number, throw one out there if you can. I'm just kind of curious to see where you think it goes. Whiskey's into the more special Lafroy Gleeses. I like the carriages, yeah. Loknes says he's had 4 bottles of the 10 since 2017, and they're always fantastic. A solid 9. And I have to agree with you on that one, man. I'm thinking that that's let me get this together here 1 second. I got to make sure I don't lose my names and figures for each category. Almost done. Let's see. I got a word wrap. Here we go. I'm just expanding this out. So Loknes locks it in with a another solid 9. What about you, Daniel? Super consistent for me. Do you give it a 9 as well, or an 8? The 10 is super consistent, probably because it's so pure. It's all about the spirit, and they can control that. Yeah. But this is also can encompass their other offerings, not just the 10. Is their Ugadal solid? Is their Korjevrekken solid? Is their an O solid? In going back to, if you've been lucky enough to have, grooves a couple times, or drum a couple times, kelpie a couple times, is it always pretty much the same feel, same greatness? Whiskey thinks that the Ugadal has some inconsistency, and that's the only one that I have noticed a bit of a difference, because I have had a 2008 Ugadal and a 2018 version. But with that said, they are, pretty similar, I have to say. But I will take you. I'll make that a 7 for you, Whiskey Ace. And looks like that Daniel also said a 9, so I'll factor these in. Daniel with a 9. All right. I really appreciate your all's time with this, by the way. It's kind of a cool experiment. Let's go to the next thing, look at variety. Now, this is one that's beautiful, I think, with this distillery. As you can see on my wall, they have a lot to offer. They have 4 core offerings. You've got the 10-year, the Ugadal, the Korjevrekken, and the Ano. You've got a sweet one with the Ano. You've got a peppery, spicy one with the Korjevrekken and a higher ABV. You've got a sherried version with the Ugadal, and then a straightforward peaty, fruity one with the 10. I think that covers, I think it covers a bit of goodness there. I do get a boatload of barbecue ribs on the nose with the grooves there, Loknes. You're spot on there, buddy. It's you're going to get a tropical, like when you get more into the glass, I think you're going to find lots of pineapple, grilled pineapple, smoked like pulled pork, and it's got this beautiful charring action going on with that. You even get some really nice vegetable, like charred. It's hard. It's almost like a meal in a glass. I love the grooves. It's one of my favorites as far as their extra off the wall offerings they do every year. And that's another thing. Every year they have at least one, if not 2, offerings. I know the Kildalton back in 2014 was one. And all the time they're doing like things like Perpetuum and Air Verdes and Dark Cove, Kelpie, Grooves, Drum. I mean, it's they have a lot of variety. The only thing they don't really have is the age, but we'll get to that next. So variety across the board, they do have a great core and broad spectrum variety. I have to give them 4 in the core is pretty good. Having 1 or 2 every year is pretty good too. It's hard. I have to give them another 9. I hate to give them 9s, but I think it's well deserved on that. Being the deal. What do you guys think? Give me a number as far as variety. How many offerings does the distillery have? I'll give you guys a couple seconds to put a number out there, and if you 10 through 0, 10 being the best. If you can't come up with something, then we'll move on. But I think that they have a lot to offer when it comes to availability overall, as far as the variety is concerned. All right, while you guys are thinking about that, let's talk about ages. This is where I have an issue with Ardbeg. They have a flat, nice 10, but where's the 12? Where's the 15? They used to have a 17 back in the day. I don't think it's been available for quite some time. Let me take a quick look at distiller.com and see if they say when the Ardbeg 17 was last available. They are releasing a brand new 18 version, which is exciting, that I saw recently. So that will help a bit. It's got a Gaelic name to it. It starts with a T. I don't have it memorized, so I can't just pull it out. But um, that's coming out very soon. Um, but yeah, the 17 was it's a rare find on retail shelves. Your best bet is through auction houses or fine bar establishments. Hint, hint. It looks like this was, when Glenmorangie bought it in 1997 and later acquired by LVMH, which is their parent company. I don't know exactly what year this came out. It's only 40% ABV, which makes me kind of cringe a little bit. It's ex-bourbon barrels. Not a lot of more information other than that. I've never seen it on the shelf. I've never seen a 15 on the shelf. I've never seen a 20, well, the 21, but yeah, just call it the 19. Uh, Jason Coates really hates the Gaelic names, and I can see both sides to that. We'll talk about that in the packaging marketing section here, but ages, I gotta nick them for that. In all actuality, it's kind of sad because I would love to have a 15, 18, 21, 25. If you don't have those, they do have the 20 something, which is a 23, 21 ish area deal. They have the new 19. They need something in the middle. A 15 and 18 would be perfect, but 19 is, I guess, tolerable. A 10, I guess a 12 and a 15 would be, I think, spot on. Without that, the age, I'm gonna have to ding them on that. I think I'm gonna give them like a 5. Sadly, it's gonna kill their average, but something they can work on as a distillery. It's not overly difficult to do, I would think, if you've been around as long as they have, and you know have access to all these casks and whatnot. I mean, Glenmorangie slash Ardbegs are huge. LVMH or whatever is a huge company, I'm sure, to have these two big brands. So I have a feeling they could make it happen if they really want to. But anyway, let's look at value. Um, oh, what about you on availability? If you think, if what 10 being the best, 0 being the worst, what do you think availability for Ardbeg is across the board, as far as and the age availability? So, how hard is it to find in your local store? And um, how about the ages? Give me a flat number. Daniel says that we'll have to say this about Ardbeg. I haven't had all of the Kilchoman core, but Ardbeg has more available than the others aside from Boklada. Yeah, that's the nice thing about it. The overall availability, it all depends definitely on what type of scotch. I'm sorry, what type of liquor store you go to. When I think availability, I think of both the liquor store and the bar. Kind of factor both in a little bit. It's a lot easier to get Ardbeg at the liquor store than it is a bar. It is a hell of a lot easier for me to go up and get a Lafroig, Lagavulin, Talisker, even Oban. I've seen a lot. Glenmorangie, of course, Balvenie, but to get an Ardbeg in an actual available in a bar has been practically non-existent for me locally here. I don't know what it is. Why? Probably the VMH. Maybe they don't have a lot of pull to, get people to ask for it, but I would love to see a local bar that would offer, even if it's just a 10, give me something. Daniel says he has to drive 60 miles to have access to the core. Wow, that's sad. So overall availability is kind of low, sadly. Let's say a 7 for me on that. Thankfully, I can find it at most liquor stores locally. So that's why I'm giving it kind of a little bit of a higher edge than a 5. But, the non-availability at a bar is what's really killing it. Ardbeg a 2 on age statement. Yeah. Okay, I'll fact you on that trooper on the age. Trooper, it's got a 2 on age. Gotcha. Consistency was the other one we looked at earlier. All right. Let me balance this out there. Availability across the board. What do you think, Trooper? Is it hard for you to find a local Ardbeg, even if it's just a 10? And not just the bars. What about your local liquor stores? Is it hard for you to find a Ardbeg, a 10 or a Ugadal at least in a local liquor store? Or is it easy to find? I'm just curious. Yeah, in bars, I think it's almost non-existent. I don't think LVMH does a lot of work with it when it comes to the getting the availability out at the bars for some reason. I guess they figure they're going to focus on the home sipper like ourselves. Speaking of, let's have another sip. Anybody else before I go to the next final review thing? Now let's look at value. Daniel doesn't mind the drive. They have one of the best barbecue restaurants in the world there. The Lot Gorm. Wow, that's a good one too. Yes, I love the Lot Gorm from Kilhoman. That'll be a fun one to do an overall review on. Let's look at Loknes says the is a 7, but 2 at the bars. So let's factor that in as a 5. I think in the middle. So you're probably about the same as I am on the on availability. It looks like you're thinking a 5. Okay, gotcha. So availability, I'll put well, if I could type, there we go. I'll put a 5 for Loknes on the availability. That's a good I think solid number on that. Dano in the 10 is all I've ever seen. Yeah. But I mean, is it easily available? I mean, can you get an O and a 10 pretty much everywhere where you are in Louisiana, or is it tough to find even an O and the 10 there? I'm just curious. A statements help educate the consumer to learn what they like instead of a shot in the dark. Yeah, that's for sure. And let's look at overall value. You know, the brand as a whole. Like when you spend your $55 on your 10 or your $80 on your Ugadal or your even $110 on your Grooves, Loknes. This is a good one, and thanks for the kudos on the nose spot there. What is your take on the value? For what you're spending? Are you getting return value on a scale from 10 being you're getting the best value for your money, and 0 being the worst? What are you getting out of that? I'm just curious. For me, it's been quite good. When it comes to the core, especially, if you do your homework, you can find the 10 for, yeah, I mean, Whiskey Ace is found as low as 40. I'm lucky to find it for 50 to 55, probably where I am. Yeah, Daniel definitely looks at it as high value. Give me a number, guys. 10 being the best, 0 being the worst. For value, what do you give it on the value? Trooper says 4 in availability. Okay, I'm gonna mark him down for that. I appreciate it because every information helps across the board, because we're all in different what you call it, regions, and availability does, change, and it's good to kind of have a better overall idea when you have other people chiming in. But I got you down for the 4 on the availability, Trooper. I appreciate it. Let's see. Value, though. I need a value number from you guys. Value in here on 2 is a 3. I love our we get screwed hard here. The 10 is $100 and the Ugadal is 180. Oh my God, that is being screwed. I hate to say it. That's a rough one, man. So Loknes we're gonna put in as a sad 3. Hopefully they'll work on that, because when it factors in with my high score, it's going to be rough on them, and hopefully they'll take account of what we're rating their stuff as big fans even of the distillery. So at least they'll know what they do right and what they don't do so well. This is the whole purpose, I think, of an exercise like this, give a good broad idea of what you're in for when you look into a particular distillery. I really like the NO. I got it for 55. Wow, that's a good price. It's here. It's $70. So you've got great value, I think, with that. So that's going to factor in. Trooper, I'm going to give you on value, if it's that good. I think a 7's probably fair on that, unless you want to give me a different number. I'll lock you in as a 7 unless you change it, though, on the value. They put a star, but my score as Canada is a different market. Yeah, but it counts. I mean, just because I'm a huge fan and I get the value that I expect in America, it's not the same, worldwide, and we're a worldwide audience. We all, they have to do it just as well in Canada, and just as well in Scotland, just as well in America, just as well in Italy, and everywhere. 7 on a value. Gotcha. Got you locked in. Good. I'm all in on that price, even though it's high for it. Yeah. 55 for the 10. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think it's a pretty good deal. 55 for a 10, 70 for a core, for an NO, 80-ish for a sherried version of Ugadal, 90 to 100 for the spicy, high ABV Corriverkin. I mean, how do you say that's not a great value, minus Loch Ness's issue with the Canadian? Probably has something to do with the taxes and whatnot. Yeah, see, Daniel gets the 70 for the Oogie. Here it's like 90, 80 if I'm lucky. And sometimes even higher. It's crazy. But thankfully, like I said, if you do your homework and you really, look in, knuckle down, it makes sense, over a while. I think that's pretty fair across the board, to factor these in this way. Well, my personal number, looking at the 9 for taste. I'm going to start with my numbers here. You get a 9 for taste, a 9 for consistency, a 9 for variety, a 5 for age availability, a 7 for overall availability, and value. Oh, I didn't put the number in there. I think I get a pretty good return on it. I'm going to give it an 8. Some of the stuff can be a little pricey, even for the limited releases. For just, as soon as they come out, it seems like everyone and their mom is trying to get the community release, and it starts off at a reasonable 110 to 120, but it ends up being $300 or $400 after the fact. I'm not going to knock them too much about that. I think it's a really good, solid value. I'm going to give them an 8. So my personal number is if I take the taste, the consistency, the variety, the age, the availability, and the value, 6 factors, it's a solid 7.83. And that's my favorite distillery. So that should be, you would think, the highest number that I give. And out of 10, I'm surprised at how low that actually is. And the age is where Ardbeg gets killed, is that factor of, the 12s and the 15s not being available until you get to that, really crazy price 19s, 20 somethings that are $300-400, $500. It's like, there should be a little more, if it's 55 for a damn 10, I would love to be able to go get a solid 16 or 17 for 80-90 bucks. And if that's what the Ugodal is supposed to be, then put a damn age statement on it. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that's too much to ask, but that's just me. Anyway, but let's try to factor Ural's deal in here if I can. This might be a little tricky. So I'm gonna have to get my calculator out. I'm not the best math person, but we'll see what we can do here. So we got an 8 and an 8.5 divided by 2. It's an 8.25 for taste for the, we'll call you guys the 8.25 will be the average taste of the audience. I appreciate it. Let's look at what you guys thought for the consistency. We got a 9, we got a 7, and a 9, and that was a 3. So that's 8.3. I think that's pretty solid still. 8.33 to be exact. For age, only a trooper factor in a sad 2. So we'll put it in there. It's really going to ding them on the age, but it is actually an actual problem they need to work on. Availability, a 5 and a 4, being a 4.5 average there for availability. Value, we're going to look at the 3, but also the 7. And that's going to be a 5. So I'm going to factor your all scores into this as well and give a kind of what we all thought. So mine was a 7.83. Let me see if I can get your alls in here. So we've got, sorry about all the math, but it is kind of fun to do. 8.25, 8.33. Let's see, a 2. I got to clear that 1 second. 8.25, 8.33, 2, a 4.5, and a 5. And we're going to divide that by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 8 divided by 5. It's like a 5.6. Wow, it's a lot lower. And it's at 2. It's only got one score for the age. Anybody else? Can you give me a score for the overall age availability for Ardbeg, as far as if you take, they do have the 10. They're releasing a 19. That is a good thing. They already do have the 20 something, which is typically a 23, 22-year-old offering. So they have 3. There is a big gap between. What's your number? That I hate to give them an average of a 5.6. I mean, I will if I have to, but it's going to be pretty rough for them on that score. I need one more number. Someone give me a number. 10 being the best, 0 being the worst. What is the availability as far as ages for Ardbeg? They have the 10. Loknes says a 2 still. All right. Well, we're going to keep it. We're going to keep it at a 5.6. We're going to average these two together, though, to give them a audience with a Telex score. So if we take the 5.6 and put it with my 783. We got a solid 6.7. Wow. Lower than I expected it to be as far as overall. But it is truthful. It's not like we're not talking out our ass or anything. We're not pulling shit out of the air. We're Daniel's thinking at 6. That would bring it up a bit. Let's see. I do think that would be fair with the new release of the 16. I'm sorry, the 19, and they already have the 20 somethings. It's kind of there is still too much of a gap, but let's give them a little more credit. Let's average in the let's see. So we had a 2, a 2, and a 6. 10 divided by 3 is a 3.3. Let's see. A 2, a 2, a 2, and a 6. Yeah, 10 divided by 3 would be 3.3. It's not going to help it very much, but it'll bump it just a little smidgen. I think that'll bring it up to an average of a good 7 overall, which I think is fair. I think out of 10, if you give Ardbeg a 7, I think that's as I am a huge fanboy, and I will be the first to admit it, and take into account what you guys think and factor in some of those things that you don't think, or maybe the consistency is not as there as much as you wish it was. More age offerings, give me a 12 or 15, something in the middle that's not so crazy priced. I think that's more than fair. I don't think we've been, I don't think we've missed the target of what we were going for here, and I think that a good solid 7 speaks a lot when you have 5, 6, 7 people that are putting their feedback into the distillery, what they get out of it. So I really appreciate that. And what you guys drinking, by the way? I didn't even start off telling you. I started off with a Dalmore 15 earlier. It was and then I went to the SMWS Dalmore. It's a 13, but cast strength, much better version. Cast strength, you can't go wrong, really. And thought I would end the night with that. I was going to break open the grooves, but I've already had a bit to drink tonight, Loknes. I might break it open next time, though, while I'm looking at a different distillery, just to get into it, because it has been a while since I've had grooves, and it is one of my favorites. I'm just afraid if I pop it open, I already have a lot of open bottles I got to get through before I pop anything new open, so that's the only reason I was kind of hesitant about breaking it open. But the grooves is very tasty. Like this says, I still love Ardbeg, and for me, more age stated and availability are what is lacking for me. Yeah, that's exactly what it is for me as well, especially at a bar level. It may just be me, Daniel says, but he's not concerned as much with the age statement. Definitely appreciate it to me, but is it worth it? I mean, that is true. When you look at some of the the dark coves and the kelpies and whatnot, even though it doesn't have a particular age, you can tell it's older than 10. The Ardbeg, I know, is at least 11 or 12 years, if I remember correctly. So some of these specialty bottles per year are older. The only issue is you don't know what it is, because they don't tell you. They don't, they don't, unfortunately, they don't, give you anything extra. So it is what it is. You kind of have to deal with what you're given. Whiskey says he finished off a bottle of Old Forester 1920. Wow, that sounds old. Yeah, I appreciate the Compass Box's transparency as well. I'm with you there, Daniel. It's hard to get a once you've experienced that much transparency, and then you go to some of these guys that won't tell you anything. It's like, really? I mean, this guy's making a fortune, um, and still telling everybody what he's doing. Then I'm talking about John Glazer. I mean, he's no idiot. He's knows how to do it. He knows what to do to get what he wants. He puts it out there, open, plain as day to see. There's no hidden, gates or keys or doors or any of that stuff, and it is what it is. So yeah, and to kind of close it all down, and to make a long story short, with our friends at Ardbeg, specifically the LVMH guys. Um, I think you guys are doing an outstanding job, and I would not change as far as the taste, consistency, variety that you have. Please give us more age statements. You know, I do agree with Daniel. It's not the end of the world that we don't have it, but it would be nice. And please, get your product out there in bars. If I want to, have a really nice steak at Pascal's Chop House, and all they have is Lagavulin, Balvenie, and Oban, it's like, damn, I would much rather have an Ardbeg 10 or an O, or something else. Give it to us. And we're not dinging you, saying that you're a bad distillery. We're just saying, we're noting things that you can work on to make your product even better, and have it where more of us can actually appreciate it. That's where I'm coming from on that. Well, I really appreciate you all hanging out with me tonight. It's been an interesting one. I think it worked out pretty well. Score was a little lower than I was hoping for, my favorite distillery, but this is going to happen when I'm looking at other ones. I might, take one and be like, I don't like these guys because of X, Y, and Z. But you guys might be like, hey, this is going to be, I think it's great. I think they're great because of X, Y, and Z, and it'll average out, and you know, everyone will, everyone's opinion will be, taken note of, basically. Loknes says, thanks for going live tonight. Really appreciate. Yeah, it has been a hell of a summer, and Daniel's right. Ardbeg is just so hard to beat. Um, and the weird thing is, since they had that big thing in the '90s where they had to close down, and they've done some of their unpeated testing with the Blazda and the Kildalton from back in 1980, and they've been around, but they've had some rough times up and down. Um, I'm glad to see that they're still kicking, and even though the drum wasn't my favorite, hopefully they're going to pull it back around for me, at least, where I'll really enjoy the next year's committee release, and get more into it. Um, I hope they don't pull some crazy like absinthe cask, or I don't know, some sort of once you've hit, like, the rum and the Armagnac and some of this other stuff. It's like, I hope they don't go too crazy down the rabbit hole. That's going to be a rough venture, but we'll see. This Dalmore, man, from the SMWS, that 13, the 13.65, I can nose that all night long and never be bored. It's a great whiskey. And can't wait to get to the next one. We're going to look at another distillery. And what do you think, guys that are still around? What do you think as far as the next one we should look at, other than Ardbeg? And it could be anything. I mean, I've got everything from Elberfeldy all the way down to Wolfburn. We can look at any of them you guys want to look at. Looks like I got a vote for Brooklottie for Jason, noting the Port Charlotte. That would be a Brooklottie offering. I want to get into their CC things. Daniel says Springbank's a good choice. That is a good one. That would be interesting. Oh, Agidor. Okay, that's a good one too, man. And Daniel's in on Brooklotti too. What do you think, Jason? You want to stick with Brooklotti, or do you? Jason could be the deciding vote on this one since we got a Springbank. Oh, and then Loknes has got one too. We got a Brooklotti, we got a Springbank, we got an Edgedar, we got a Highland Park or Glengoyne. Man, I'm thinking let's do Edgedar because you guys, there was two solid Edgedar ones. That'll be a good one to look into. I'm gonna have to brush up on my Edgedar a little bit. I have had a couple. I've had three. They're heavily peated, they're standard, and a. Been lucky enough to have a sherried version as well. So that'll be a good distillery to maybe tackle. And Edgedar is one of the ones that doesn't get much attention. So, we're going to hit all of them eventually. I think I could do an Edgedar maybe next time. So that might be on the list to do. So if you guys do have an Edgedar, join me maybe Tuesday. I'm thinking we'll try to do a Tuesday. If we can't do Tuesday, we'll do a Thursday, one of the two. And I'll try to give you guys at least a day's heads up of when we're going to pull the trigger, even if it's before that. If I, get a way to do it on a Monday, Labor Day or something, you never know. Linus went to a high school with an Ed Dredauer. That's hilarious. Yeah, Valican is their heavily peated type of offering. I think you'll like it. Usually, Daniel, I try to get on Tuesdays now. It's kind of like my new night. I've been trying to hit, I think, around 8 or 9-ish at the latest. 9 is typically when I would do it. So let's stick with 9. I think 9 is a good time, Tuesday. And if I can't do 9 Tuesday, we'll do 11 after Dummies Thursday. That's the plan at least. And if we do like an off the wall like Monday show or something, like if it's a last minute thing, unfortunately you might never know, but Tuesdays are his best days. Good, okay. Well, that's my usual thing. So let's try to keep it to a Tuesday then. People are kind of out and about for the holiday this weekend. I knew it was going to be kind of even for the Scotch for Dummies, I knew it was going to be a lower turnout on the show because everyone's traveling and visiting and whatnot. But yeah, Tuesday might be a good time where people are back back at work at least and need a night to recuperate a little bit from their first day back. So that'll be the plan. Well, I hope you guys had fun. I really appreciate you sticking around all this time. We've gone for quite a while. It's already 1. Thank God I'm off tomorrow. Hopefully this ends up in the YouTube thing the correct way. That's the goal, at least. This is the first time I'm using this StreamYard stuff that Drew let me know about. Really appreciate, shout out to Drew from the Scotch for Dummies to help me out with the more technical expertise. Yeah, thanks, Jason, Loknes, Daniel, Trooper, Swami, Whisky Ace, all you guys have stopped by. Thankfully, there was a bit of you that were in and out a lot tonight, and we'll get the gang together again. And this one I didn't advertise at all. That's one other reason why I don't think anybody hardly showed. But I'm going to try to get the word out on Twitter for the next go. And I had fun with this one. I think it did pretty well, and we'll go from there. Cheers, everybody. Lightness is correct. Slancheva.